Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
I got a video here from the iHip news here, so let's go to that and we'll discuss it on the other side.
Rapist and convicted felon President Donald Trump is in hot water. What I predict to be the very first in the bombs dropped in the Epstein case was dropped the evening of July 17th by the Wall Street Journal, and here it is. Jeffrey Epstein's friend sent him a body letter, to include in a 50th birthday album. One was done by Donald Trump. And it says, like the others in the album, it contains several lines of typewritten text. This is important. Framed by the outline of a naked woman, which appears to be hand-drawn with a heavy marker. Trump famously uses a Sharpie. A pair of small arc denotes the woman's breasts, and the future president's signature is squiggly, Donald, below her waist, mimicking pubic hair. The letter concludes, "Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret." Okay. What other secret did Donald Trump know and Jeffrey Epstein know at the time of his 50th birthday party? It was about young girls, because in an article for a profile on Jeffrey Epstein, Trump said he loves beautiful women. He likes them on the young side. He knew he was in it up to his eyeballs. The people are coming out of the woodwork to talk about their close association. Sean Spicer said on a podcast, that's his former press secretary, that he knew he was on the list. But let's see the letter that went with the body outline with Donald Trump's name as pubic hair. Now, they say this is not the exact letter. It is a replica. So that's important to remember. Voiceover. "There must be more to life than having everything," the note began. Donald says, "Yes, there is, but I won't tell you what it is. Jeffrey, nor will I, since I also know what it is. Donald, we have certain things in common, Jeffrey." Jeffrey, "Yes, we do, come to think of it." Donald says, "Enigmas never age. Have you noticed that?" Now, I think that's interesting. And a lot of people are saying, well, he doesn't use the word enigma. Before he became completely demented, he did use enigma all the time. It's on record. Go find it. Jeffrey says, "As a matter of fact, it was clear to me the last time I saw you." So enigmas never age, which means the girls continue to stay young. And Jeffrey knows that Donald knows it was clear to him the last time he saw him. Trump says, "A pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret." So I know MAGA is going to, Donald Trump, fake news, blah, 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 blah. In fact, before I comment on it, let's see his response, because his hair is on fire. And we learned that this story has been circulating, and Donald Trump was notified that it was coming out 2 or 3 days before it actually went out. And that's why he immediately runs out and says, "Oh, it was Obama, it was Hillary, it was a hoax, it was Biden," because he knew this was coming and he knows what's in it. So here's his response. "The Wall Street Journal and Rupert Murdoch personally were warned directly by President Donald J. Trump that the supposed letter they printed by President Trump to Epstein was fake, and if they print it, they will be sued." Now, mind you, Donald Trump posted this about Donald Trump. calling himself Donald Trump. Mr. Murdoch stated that he would take care of it, but obviously did not have the power to do so. So we did hear that Trump and Caroline Leavitt, they were rattling cages, trying to prevent this story from coming out. So he calls up Rupert Murdoch, threatens to sue him. And he says Murdoch didn't have the power. No, maybe Murdoch is sick and tired because during the Dominion lawsuit, we heard all about how much he hates you. And then it says, the editor of the Wall Street Journal, Emma Tucker, was told directly by Caroline Leavitt and by President Trump that the letter was a fake. But Emma Tucker didn't want to hear that. Instead, they are going with a false, malicious, and defamatory story anyway. President Trump, again, third person, will be suing the Wall Street Journal, News Corp, and Mr. Murdoch shortly. The press has to learn to be truthful and not rely on sources that probably don't even exist. President Trump has already beaten George Stephanopoulos, ABC, 60 Minutes, CBS, and others, and looks forward to suing and holding accountable the once great Wall Street Journal. Keep this up. It's real important to know that CBS caved because they wanted to merge. So Paramount caved. Now they fired Stephen Colbert. They caved. He didn't win a lawsuit. They caved because it was more trouble, and Trump would have stopped the merger of Paramount and the person buying them. ABC caved because they're weak. Donald Trump did not win in court against these people. And then it says, it has truly turned out to be a disgusting and filthy rag. And writing defamatory lies like this shows their desperation to remain relevant. If there were any truth at all on the Epstein hoax as it pertains to President Trump, this information would have been released by Comey, Brennan, Crooked Hillary, and other radical left lunatics years ago. It certainly would not have sat in a file waiting for Trump to have won 3 elections. It's yet another example of fake news. Bullshit, 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 bullshit. Okay. So he is up in arms. He's calling people. He's threatening lawsuits, which that's just what he does. That is just what he does. And then here's what's so interesting. He says that he never draws. He never draws. That doesn't sound like me. I don't draw. Put it up, Seth. Okay. Here are pictures that he signed, that he's drawn with his free hand with a heavy marker. Okay. Like the man lies because either his cognitive decline is so much he doesn't remember this, and he says stupid shit that's easily proven incorrect, or he just lies thinking his supporters are stupid. Either way, it's a lie, it's disinformation. And right now in the United States, it is so important to have factual news. We have agency over our news, and we need to find facts. And that is why Jennifer and I always use ground news. Back to the T. One thing I found interesting on the internet, now granted, I don't know if this is true, because according to Elon Musk, Steve Bannon is in the Epstein files up to his eyeballs. But they're reporting that Steve Bannon is the one who gave the book to the Wall Street Journal, according to sources inside. Now, I don't know if I believe that. I mean, it could be true. I'll tell you who we could ask about it is Ghislaine Maxwell, because she's in jail. So that presents just a huge problem for Trump, because if she's in jail, she can sing like a bird to get out. Or if he pardons her, the MAGA base will really lose their mind then if he were to do that. So he is in a pickle he has not been in the entire time he's been in politics. And then something that I think is so super important, and I know I referenced it earlier, but Trump got wind of this. The Beltway knew this Wall Street Journal article was coming. And that's when you see Trump posting all this stuff, blaming it on the Democrats. The Journal reports that when reporters contacted Trump 2 days ago about this story, he threatened to sue if it was published, then hours later claimed that Obama and Biden made up the Epstein files. Of course he did. Of course he did, because that's what he does. He has undermined the media and called it fake news from jump. So when crazy shit that he does is reported, he can just say, well, it's a hoax. It's not true. So we'll see if his MAGA base falls for it this time. I don't know if they will, but Karoline Leavitt, as you know, if you're a listener of this podcast, is one of my favorite targets, because she, even at 27 or 28, she is a master of lying and propaganda. But I thought this comment she made was interesting. So let's hear from Karoline Leavitt in response to a question about the Epstein case.
Attorney General to do an exhaustive review of all files related to Jeffrey Epstein, which they did. The Attorney General and the FBI, led by Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, these are great patriots, some of the most trusted voices in the Republican Party movement. It's part of the reason the president appointed them to these high law enforcement positions. And they spent many months going through all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein, and they concluded what they found in that memo, which they drafted and they released. And so the president has been transparent. He has followed through on his promises to the American people, but he doesn't like to see Democrats and the mainstream media covering this like it's the biggest story that the American people care about.
Okay, here's the deal. For 10 years, Donald Trump has been screaming about the deep state and what's going on with the Jeffrey Epstein files, that it's the deep state, Democrats, radical left scumballs. He's the one that put this in his base's grips. Nobody else. And I will say this, nobody thinks Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, Pam Bondi are trustworthy. I'm just telling you that straight up. Everybody knows they're propagandists. Pam Bondi has been in the Epstein file since jump. She was the attorney general when Palm Beach arrested him and gave him that sweetheart deal. So no, we trust you zero on this. But I'll tell you who we do trust are the FBI agents that have seen it. The prosecutor, Comey, that was just fired from the Southern District of New York. Hopefully these people will come out and tell us exactly what's going on. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel. We'll be back with more news.
Well, it looks like Ghislaine, she's holding the sword of Damocles over Trump's head here from from what I can understand. And I think Trump has got like two options here with her. Give her trial, okay, her second trial, or pardon her. And if he pardons her, that's going to look really bad, because then MAGA's really going to know that something's up here. Okay, something they can't, I mean, how can they argue that there isn't? So my guess is he probably won't pardon her, but he'll probably give her trial. But he'll be sweating bullets through that, because she might inadvertently reveal more stuff about Trump than he's really willing to allow to get out there, So this is one of those things where Trump, with his web of deceit and lies has entangled him. You see what happens when you lie all the time, people? Eventually, the lies catch up to you. And, sooner or later, you're going to have to face the music. People thought, I'm not going to say people, but Trump thought he could dodge this bullet by becoming president. And here this bullet has found its way back, pointed at him again. So even being the president, he's still, he's still not out of the hot water yet. But he can't shut up the MAGA base about it. He can't shut up anybody about it, the press or anyone. He wants to go after a Wall Street Journal or whatever and sue them for releasing information about stuff that he didn't want getting out. I mean, this is what he does. He attacks the media. He attacks everybody that says anything. Well, if he does that, then it means that whatever they got is pretty damning. If he feels threatened by what he's saying is fake news, well, if it's so fake, then why are you worried about it? You know? No, it's not fake, because he's out there trying to sue everybody that releases any information about this relationship with Epstein, Ghislaine, and Trump. So that proves right there that there's something dynamite in what they report. So he's not helping himself any. And you know, I really don't know what the hell how much people are going to be able to take of this man and his, you know, and his whatever you want to call it, his criminal history. But you know, at some point, you know, people are going to have to say, look, I mean, obviously he's guilty of something and it's bad. Okay, he knew this guy Epstein for many years. Okay, how deep he was involved with Epstein's sex trafficking thing, well, that'll have to be determined at some point in court or whatever. It's going to have to come through evidence, but it's very obvious that he's involved in some fashion, and he knows some things about it. All right, and even that alone would be enough to get him in trouble for something, you know, for having known that this man was involved in some nefarious shit and he never reported it to the police. That doesn't look good either. You know, I mean, you got to think about the crime here. These weren't young women. You know, these were kids. These were girls that were like 14, 15 years old. They're still kids, you know? So people in the press, I mean, you got to stop calling these kids young women, because, you know, to soften the blow here. It shouldn't be softened. The impact of what Trump did should be felt, bone-chilling felt, as to what he did. I mean, this isn't about, you know, some old man, you know, giving lollipops to kids. No, this was this was something more devious, nasty, you know, and people, there's a lot of people that know things about this. I mean, let me just throw out this. Let me pitch this idea out there for everybody. Vladimir Putin, okay? We know Trump had dealings with Putin, okay, before he became president, okay? Who's to say Putin wasn't involved in some aspect of this Jeffrey Epstein mess? You know? And if that's the case, what do you think Putin has on Trump? It gives you some reason, some measure of pause there when you think about this, because, you know, all the people that this man associated with, are, you know, a lot of them are just really down in the dirt and nasty people. I mean, it's just, you know, and that being said, would these folks, when they had the power, the money, and the means to do these things, would they have information, you know, on each other, you know, especially with Trump? I mean, come on. How, you know, this wasn't something that was done just by two people, okay? This was a global ring of shit that was going on here under Epstein. All right? And look, Prince William, okay? He was in on that. So, like I said, you know how many people on this earth know about all this shit that he did with Epstein? A lot, it seems. And that list, you know, that Ghislaine is holding over Trump's head, is got him scared. It's got him scared. And, you know, some people are saying he's going to pardon her, and some people say, oh, he's going to let her have that trial so she can clear her name because of Trump's big mouth saying, oh, all that information was fabricated, okay? And she'll win her case on that, because, you know, when you got the president himself saying that, that's more than enough proof and evidence, I think, to bring to court to get her off of whatever. So, even though we know it's a bunch of shit, okay, and she's still a criminal, she's just going to be a criminal that's been set free by circumstances outside, her control. But the fact is, they don't want her talking. And, having her mysteriously disappear is still a possibility, in my mind anyway. But that would look even more suspicious because, hey, Epstein died, and what happened after he died? Everybody said, oh, he knew something. He knew something big. And Trump could be behind it. Okay, so if they do that again, that's only going to make it even worse. I think, so I'm not so sure that they will try to off her unless she comes out of that fucking prison ready to start fighting. I don't know. It all depends. But this is a pretty bad position for Trump to be in right now, and I'm not so sure he's really going to have much say on how this pans out for him, because the anger level about this continues to go up as more and more and bits and pieces of Trump's past here with Epstein leak out. Okay, and not from just Ghislaine, but from other people who were also in on that. And I have to laugh, you've seen Alan Dershowitz doing the media around here this week. And I'm thinking, you know what? Your name was brought up by Virginia Giuffre there, who said, he was there at Mar-a-Lago during these parties. Okay? And when she said that, Dershowitz hit the fucking ceiling and said, oh, that's lies. And okay, so, that's a guy who's also got a name probably on that list, who probably knows a lot about what went on there with Trump and Epstein. Okay? And like I said, these are wealthy people. And wealthy people often get themselves mixed up in some fucking dirty shit because they've got the money to do it and to hire lawyers like Dershowitz, I guess, to protect them if they get caught. It just seems like that's the routine. The wealthy people are really the most likable, not likable by like, but most likely, I should say, to be people involved in some of these big fucking crimes rings that go on in the world. Okay, we know sex trafficking is a global thing. Okay, in fact, a lot of people, a lot of girls who were abducted, some of them ended up in Ukraine, in Odessa, Ukraine. They're picked up off the streets and they're sent all the way over there because sex trafficking happened in that part of the world too. And they pick up American girls because, I don't know, maybe there's people out there like American girls or something like that. But this was something that was going on. And so it's a global thing, and you can't do something global like that unless there's money behind it, and a lot. You know what I'm saying? So naturally, this is going to be done by people who have a lot of fucking money. And hey, Trump's got it, Epstein's got it. Who else? I mean, Christ, the list goes on. You got Prince William's there, for Christ's sake. Plenty of money to go around to keep that machine running. So I feel like, this is the more we peel the scab back, the more pus we're going to pull out of this thing, and Trump's in that. Okay, and a lot of it's going to get out. I don't know what's going to happen when Trump starts to get more desperate here. Like I was talking about yesterday, how he's got blood flow problems. This the stress of this just might give him a fucking heart attack. But I don't know. Like I said, it's really interesting to see how this is developed. And a lot of people are saying, why didn't they start with this last year or the year before when they were going after Trump? Why did they go after him on these other lesser charges and stuff? I don't know. I really don't know, because you would think that if you're going to prosecute somebody for crimes, you'd start with the worst crime and work your way down. But instead, with Trump, when they started the trial process on that records, the stuff that he took, and stuff like that, people just really weren't that interested in that, I don't think. Okay? Because, you know, it was such a murky subject, because people don't really know what a president is allowed to have or not have and stuff. Even though the rules are there, it's a hard sell. But when you start going after somebody on something like this, like fucking sex trafficking, it's pretty obvious that it's wrong. There's no murkiness there. There's no, you know, plausibility to why he did it. You can't make excuses for it. All right, so people understand that. And, you know, like they were saying, they should have started with this thing first and gone after him with that. Okay, but, you know, that's the past. You know, we can't redo that. But you could see how damaging it's already been to Trump and MAGA, because, you know, he's losing his base. His fan base here basically is turning their back on him. And some of these people, you know, over the last few years have been very vocal in their support of him, you know, to the point of actually going to prison for his fucking ass. You know, I'm talking about Steve Bannon there. They actually would go to prison for this man. But now all of a sudden, you know, now that we're talking about Epstein and the dodginess of, you know, Carolyn Leavitt, whatever, and Pam Bondi, you know, being very vague and evasive and, you know, secretive. Okay, all of a sudden now it's too much to take. These people don't want this crap to deal with, because, hey, they've been picking on every fucking Democrat president for years for, oh, he's a pedophile and now they got one of their own who is, it's not a fucking guess, but it's a fucking fact. You know? So once again, they point, you know, fingers at everybody else, but they got 4 fingers pointed right back at them. So, you know, this is not good for MAGA. This isn't good for MAGA to try and protect him from this shit. It's not going to work out for them. It's not going to work out for Trump. Trump's getting pissed at them, you know, and that's a big sign right there that there's division in the ranks. So how that translates to the administration, I don't know. That remains to be seen. You know, I can't say that there's infighting going on between Pam Bondi and Trump or anything like that. But there's certainly going to be some people scratching their heads here, wondering, you know, how far am I going to support this fucker? You know, after all the truth comes out, if it does. You know, a lot of these people are probably wishing they, you know, weren't tied to him and, you know, his name, because if he goes down, he's going to drag every person that's in his administration down with him, and their political careers are more likely to be over after that than to be able to continue. So, you know, it's a big shitstorm, you know, and, you know, it's just that this happens to him, because Trump has created a lot of misery in this country here in 6 months. And the fact that he's going through some miserable times right now is appropriate. Okay, you can call it karma or whatever, but it's a misery of his own creation, because he dodged it for so long, you know, for so many years, that now it's all caught up to him and he can't hide from it anymore. Really, he put himself out there, and now that certain things have been revealed, hey, you know, it's time to ante up here. So, all right. So that's it for me today. I'm going to talk to you guys later. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.